Story 1: The Mirror in the Attic by Daniel Crawford. Listen to this carefully, because what happened to Daniel Crawford still haunts him to this day. It started when he inherited his grandmother's old house, a sprawling Victorian mansion that had been abandoned for years. Everything seemed normal at first, but then he decided to explore the attic. That's where he found it, an enormous antique mirror with an ornate wooden frame, so old and covered in dust that he could barely see his reflection. Daniel decided to clean it. As he wiped away years of grime, he started to notice something deeply unsettling. Every time he looked into the mirror, his reflection appeared slightly delayed. Not by much, maybe a second or two, but enough to make his skin crawl. At first, he thought it was just the old glass playing tricks on his eyes. But then came the night that changed everything. Daniel was alone in the attic around 2 a.m., unable to sleep. He stood before the mirror with only a flashlight for company. He watched as his reflection moved independently. His mirror self tilted its head when Daniel stood completely still. It smiled when Daniel's face remained expressionless. Panicking, Daniel backed away from the mirror. His reflection did the opposite. It stepped forward. It pressed its palms against the glass from the inside, and Daniel swears he heard scratching sounds coming from within the mirror itself. He ran downstairs and didn't return to the attic for 3 days. When he finally gathered the courage to go back, the mirror was gone, completely vanished. He searched everywhere, but it had disappeared without a trace. No signs of it being moved or broken. Daniel contacted local antique dealers and historians, but nobody could provide any answers about the mirror's origin or its current location. To this day, Daniel refuses to buy any mirrors. He won't even look at his reflection in windows. And sometimes, late at night, he claims he can still hear that faint scratching sound echoing through his house. The worst part? His therapist suggested it was all psychological. But Daniel knows the truth. Something was looking back at him that night, and it wasn't his reflection. Story 2: The Photograph in the Thrift Store by Michelle Torres. Michelle Torres loved exploring thrift stores on weekend afternoons. That's how she found it. A black and white photograph in an old wooden frame, tucked behind a pile of books. The photo showed a family standing in front of a house she recognized, her family's current house. But the photograph was dated 1952, decades before her family ever moved there. In the photograph, a mother, father, and 2 children stood perfectly still, their eyes staring directly into the lens. Only shadows melting into darkness, staring directly at the camera with expressions that seemed almost frozen. Not quite smiling, not quite frowning, just staring with an intensity that made Michelle deeply uncomfortable. She bought it for $3, unable to shake the feeling that she needed to keep it. That night, she placed the photograph on her bedroom shelf. She tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she could see those faces, the unblinking stares, the unnatural stillness. Around 3 a.m., she turned on her light to look at the photograph again. Her heart stopped. In the photograph, the family had moved. They were no longer standing in front of the house. They were now standing inside the house, visible through the windows. And their faces were now pressed against the glass, as if they were trapped inside and trying to get out. Michelle threw the photograph across the room. When she picked it up with shaking hands, everything was back to normal. The family was outside again, back at the front of the house, back in their original positions. She didn't sleep that night. Every hour, she checked the photograph. And every hour, the family's position had changed. They were inside the house, in the attic, in the basement, getting closer, getting angrier. By sunrise, the photograph showed the family standing at her bedroom door, even though her door was closed. The next morning, Michelle took the photograph back to the thrift store, but they had no record of selling it. The manager showed her security footage from the weekend, and there was no record of Michelle ever entering the store. Michelle never went back to that store. She's terrified of old photographs now. Sometimes she swears she sees that family in the reflections of shop windows as she walks past. Always staring, always watching. And she started noticing something that keeps her awake at night. In every family photo her parents took before she was born, there are 5 people standing together. But her parents only had 1 child. Story 3: The Footsteps in the Empty House by Robert Ashford. Robert Ashford was a real estate agent who specialized in selling difficult properties. The house on Millbrook Lane had been on the market for 3 years. Nobody wanted it. The price kept dropping, but still no offers. When Robert finally got access to show it, he understood why almost immediately. The moment he stepped inside, he heard footsteps upstairs. Heavy, deliberate footsteps moving across the hardwood floor from room to room. Robert checked the entire house. Front door locked, back door sealed, all windows closed. Nobody was inside with him. Yet the footsteps continued. Back and forth, back and forth. Robert left the house and refused to show it again. But his boss insisted. The next time he entered, the footsteps were louder, more aggressive. They didn't just pace, they stomped. They ran. They stopped directly above his head, and Robert could hear them clearly, even from the first floor. Then, abruptly, silence. He heard breathing, not his own. Someone else was breathing in the room with him. Robert spun around, but he was completely alone. The breathing grew heavier, faster, angrier. He ran outside and called the police. When they arrived and searched the house, they found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no hidden compartments, no explanation. Over the next 2 weeks, Robert tried showing the house to potential buyers. Every single time, the same thing happened. Footsteps, breathing, an overwhelming sense of being watched by something unseen. Eventually, Robert dug into the house's history. He found a newspaper article from 1987 about a man named Victor Kellerman, who had murdered his entire family in that house. He hanged himself in the master bedroom after the crime. The house had been vacant ever since. No family had lasted more than a few weeks before fleeing in terror. Robert reported his findings to his boss and begged to stop showing the property. Instead, he was fired for generating negative publicity. As of last year, the house on Millbrook Lane remains unsold. The property taxes are paid by an anonymous trust, so it will likely stand empty forever. Real estate agents refuse to show it, but locals report seeing shadows moving behind the darkened windows late at night. Some claim they hear footsteps even from outside. And once, a curious teenager decided to investigate the property during the day. He was found hours later, wandering the street in complete shock, unable to speak or comprehend where he was. He's been in psychiatric care ever since. He still doesn't remember what happened inside that house, but he screams every night in his sleep. Which story scared you the most? Was it the mirror that had its own mind? The photograph that changed on its own? Or the house that harbors something far worse than just memories? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more terrifying true stories that will keep you up at night. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.